Good night, everyone. And welcome again. It's Thursday, and we're here for Let 'em Eat Laughs, the show where culture, comedy, and the culinary collide in a delicious gumbo, if you will, of guests and jokes and talk and vibes and everything here for you again on a Thursday night. Now, before we get started with our guest for tonight, I know you're just dying to know who this is sitting here with me. We're going to talk about our event that we have coming up. Just a reminder for those who have not yet gotten their tickets, we're having another Let 'em Eat Laughs live. So for the people that have been coming through the pandemic, sitting on the other side of the screen for years, now that we're back out, it's summer, the sun is shining, we can have Let 'em Eat Laughs live, where you can come and get your food and get your jokes and get your drinks in person at Cocktails and Comedy on June the 29th. At Buchan. What's the address?
744 Danforth?
774 Danforth. Good guess. 774 Danforth. So our theme for this month's Cocktails and Comedy is the Dark and Stormy edition. And if you don't know about the Dark and Stormy, that's where you get dark rum with the spicy ginger beer to make a cocktail that's oh so good, So Buchan's going to do it up for us that night, and we're going to have really great comedians alongside these really great drinks, and your ticket price for $30 includes one of those dark and stormy cocktails, or another cocktail of your choice, or a drink of your choice, or the house appetizer. I mean, come on. How many different ways can you get a good deal? Our guests for that night are Rasha. You've seen her at one of our events before. That girl Rasha on Instagram. Make sure that you come out and you check her out, as well as our headliner, the ever popular Lady Day at Lady Day Comedy on IG. She's going to be performing there tonight, and our guest for tonight will also be there. And that guest, there's the big reveal. That guest is Kalin T. Spence. Spence. Kalin T. Spence is also performing at his first Let 'em Eat Live's comedy event, and he is our guest tonight for Let 'em Eat Laughs live stream. So thank you for being here with us, Kalin. So I'm going to remind everybody, get your tickets. You can find us on Eventbrite at darkstormy.eventbrite.ca, or also the link in bio. Welcome, Kalin.
Thank you.
Did I say the name right?
Yeah, you got it eventually. Yeah.
That's one of the first things I appreciated about meeting you, was that your name is equally as butchered as mine when I go places. I describe Kalin as a newish comedian, but really, I saw you nowhere. And then after I saw you the first time, I saw you everywhere.
Right. It's been a blessing. People are seeing me. They're seeing that I'm funny, and they're ready to join the wave. So I'm here for it. And
I'm glad you're here, because now that everybody's like, who is this guy? I can be part of letting people know more about you.
Yeah. If you want to know about me, I'm pretty much an open book.
You're pretty much an open book.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get
a few
those.
things I can't talk about because legal reasons.
Otherwise, let's get those bank card passwords, shall we? Okay, let's start with the name. Right, I got a few questions about the name. Where'd it come from?
Well, the truth is, my name is not nearly as fascinating as what it actually is. Kalin, my godmother, named me, and she doesn't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from. I looked it up. There's an old Indian folk story about a hero named Kalin, and I know my godmother was not reading that. So,
okay,
all right.
Is she Jamaican?
Yeah, she's Jamaican. All my parents, both of my parents are Jamaican.
And I was wondering, because I know whenever I find a Jamaican with an interesting name, there's always some kind of story behind it. And usually it's the nurse didn't understand what she said story, or they don't know how to spell the thing properly story. But you're saying that wasn't the story.
Nah, that wasn't it. My godmother named me Kalin because I was the firstborn of that section of women in their lives, right? So I'm literally everybody's baby, right? Okay. And my mother just couldn't think of what to call me, and she looked at my godmother, and my godmother kind of had it already locked down, right? So I'm happy for that, because I'm not gonna lie, my godmother named multiple children after that, and they're not hitting as hard as she. They never hit the same way.
All right, so she just, she got it out with the first, and then everything after that was second rate.
It's like a first album, you had years to practice for the first album, and then afterwards, the timeline starts closing, and you don't have the same amount of time to work on it.
So, are you the oldest of many siblings?
I'm the oldest of three. I'm the oldest of three siblings. I have three sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Three sisters after you.
Yeah,
okay.
3 sisters after me.
Good names. Did your godmother name those?
No, my godmother did not name the rest of them. So, all the sisters that we share the same mother, we all have the same initials. So it's me, Kalin, Camilla, and Kiana. Right, and then my other sister is named Marisha. Right. So it's KKK with the L.
Yeah, it's always like my sister and I. We also share not just the first initials. We share all of the initials, like all.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes these parents just get on their process and they stick with it.
And my mom was on some, she thought she was feeling herself. She tattooed all the names of the children on their shoulder, right? But she didn't realize that when she put on a tank top, right, it cuts off the rest of the name, and you just see the KKK coming down. Oh, no. I'm like, that's not the best look. You have to have another you just to mix it.
Oh no! Yeah, we didn't think that one all the way through. So, are you a good big brother? Are you solid?
I mean, I like to think so. I mean, my sisters would disagree, but they don't rate me like that. So, but that's family, right? Nah, I was actually calling my sisters today just because I was checking in on them. Before the show, I was checking in on just making sure. All right. Yeah.
So are you strict? Are you nurturing? Are you in a them business? What kind of brother are you?
I'm very much of the point that my sisters are all adults at this point, and I'm I respect you and your autonomy as an adult. Right, I will call you. They call me when they want to know something. When they want to ask me about one thing, they call me about taxes. I'm like, I'm not that much older than you, but that's fair. I'll help you. I'll help you do your taxes. Right. No, we're kind of it's a real they feel like family. They feel like friends. It's one of the things where I'll call them, I'll check on them, and we're always going back and forth. I'm not overbearing. They can call me if they need me for a thing. I know I can call them if they need me for a thing, and I'll check on them. And we keep pushing. We're all doing our own thing, and we love each other for that.
That sounds solid. That sounds really solid. So you grew up a Jamaican youth in Toronto.
Yes. I am a big Jamaican. I'm a big Jamaican. It's undeniable. If the dreads don't give it away, or the voice doesn't give it away, yeah. My parents were Jamaican. All my fully Jamaican. They both moved down here separately, and then they met each other when they're in the country at some point. And then all of their families, most of their families here, and then I have a whole bunch of family back in Jamaica. Right.
Which part of Jamaica?
So my mother's in Ochi, and my dad's in Portmore.
Oh, okay.
Right? And my grandfather lives up in the mountains. Right, and he's been chilling over there for God knows how long.
All right.
And I don't know, and he's never leaving.
He's not to come out.
Exactly, right? But even going up there is nice. I want to go up over that. But
did your parents take you? Did you go to Jamaica when you were young?
I went to Jamaica a lot when I was young, and then I still kind of go when I got older. Right, I haven't been there 2-3 years right now.
Well, fair. I think anybody can say that at this point.
Yeah, that's fair, right? But my dad's always going back, and my dad wants to go back to Jamaica for his 50th. So I'm like, all right, we kind of have to make that happen.
So when you were growing up, then would you say that was it your parents that really imbued the solid sense of culture into you? Was it the community you lived in? Because a lot of people they get born, and then the culture just kind of slips between their fingers and it's gone.
I definitely feel like it was a combination of both. Right, I grew up in Jane and Finch connections, pop, right? Right. So it's my parents are definitely the type of Jamaicans that come down and then they don't hang out with nobody except other Caribbean people, right? And you know what? That's fine. That's dandy. But me growing up in the city at that time, I didn't actually have that ability. So I was infused in the Caribbean culture all the time, but also when I was going to school, when I was moving from one place to the next, I was always surrounded by other cultures always. And in Finch, I think I knew enough white people to count on my hand, right?
Okay. So not a lot
of white people. We're talking about. I know some Vietnamese, Koreans, Chinese, right? You know, we got people from the Middle East, right? We're coming from all the different parts of life, right? Everybody's just first generation immigrants, all just kind of growing up together, right? What did you bring home from home? What did I bring home from, right? And we're out here swapping food back and forth,
All right.
right? So yeah, I've always had I've always had a taste of culture and all of it. And honestly, living in Toronto has definitely blessed me for that.
Right. So talking about swapping food back and forth, right? Like I guess then food was a serious part of your growing up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I was a fat kid, so food better have been serious.
It's a blessing, because not a lot of kids can say that they're not fed well enough to be a fat kid.
Hey, exactly, right? Because yes, my mother was feeding me, my grandmother was feeding me, right? It took me a really long time to realize, oh, you don't have to finish everything on the plate.
Oh, we do. Blasphemy. We have to finish everything. We don't waste food.
Nah, it's not wasted. You put it to the side, you eat it later, right? You guys still have it, you know what I mean? But right, but growing up, I was, I love me some food. I was always trying to help my mom in the kitchen, and she was always sending me away because she doesn't need that kind of help.
Are you helping, or are you just like taking a little from the side?
I mean, you say that, but I saw it as helping at the time. I was helping.
You were
exactly.
What they said, to making sure it's not poison.
Exactly. Quality control. You know what I mean?
Quality control. I have to use that.
Right. It's like, you come you make sure you take a look at one piece of dumpling. You're like, all right, it tastes good. Keep going.
So, what's the best thing that your mom could cook, or that either one of your parents could cook that was really your thing?
The favorite thing, the best thing that my mother's cooked is I'm a fiend for lasagna, and my mother makes a fire lasagna, and it really took time for me to figure out what my recipe for lasagna is. But in terms of my mother's cooking, my mother could mash up a jerk chicken. Mother could mash up oh my god, chicken for the soup. Oh. Listen.
So chicken foot soup. So you mean you weren't one of them youths that you look in the pot and you see all the chicken foot, and then you're like, I don't know about that.
Nah, I was one of them people who are digging in, taking out one piece of chicken foot and walking away with chicken.
That's solid. That's a solid culture. Do you eat the fish head?
Yes.
Solid.
Yes, you suck on the eyeballs, you crack open that top.
Listen, I want you to listen to this. I want my listeners to listen to this, because nowadays people say, oh, I don't know how to keep my children connected to their culture. What am I going to do with them? Make them eat the head of the fish. Don't slice it up. Don't debone it. Nothing. Make them eat the head of the fish.
It's cultural training. Put some festival on the side. If I bone catching their throat, boom, here.
Yeah, so it go, right? It's important. And I want to see that in the comments. Do you eat the head of the fish? Do you suck out the eye of the fish? Do you eat the chicken foot?
Are you eating bone marrow? Are you cracking chicken?
My gosh, when I tell you, my mother, dental care is not what it used to be. My mother would chew that oxtail bone, suck out the marrow, and just chew it down to a fine powder. Leave the powder by the side of her plate. I used to be like, wow. Wow.
Yep, I remember my auntie being like, that's how my teeth is strong.
Yes,
I was like, all right.
Forget the dentist, give them the oxtail bone.
Or do both. Get the oxtail bone and the dentist. Now you're doing double duty.
Strong teeth, clean teeth. So you got benefits, even if you don't. Do what you can. Do what you can.
Yeah, right. There's solutions.
Does your dad cook?
My dad is an interesting cook. My dad is
interesting cook.
My dad will touch a kitchen. Every now and then I see my dad touch a kitchen, and you never understand what's happening, but there's always some good food that comes out on the end of it. Right. He's like an experimenter. He's been experimenting with food for God knows how long. So when he brings food, when he comes out on the other end, he makes it work. Right.
So you're not in there helping him, though.
No, I'm not in there. I'm not in there helping him, because I need to know. There needs to be some semblance of order, right? And there's not order when my father's in the kitchen.
Right, but whatever comes out at the end is good.
I can trust that I know I'm going to eat it and it's not going to be poison. I know it's going to be good. Right? Yeah.
So as a cook, are you like a combination of the two strategies, or are you more like one or the other?
I've leaned more into the side of my father being experimental. gumbo. But like I definitely have like recipes that I'm like sitting that I know on the back of my mind. I can't even explain how to cook it properly because I'm like, oh, it's just like look at dash at this, you know, boom, 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 right? I start using sound effects instead of actual measurements for what you have to put into it. So like I think I've definitely found myself somewhere in the middle where now I'm just like, I'll start a new recipe and like I'll read a recipe 1-2 times. I'm like, all right, understand. Then that's show the recipe and then start whipping it.
Right. I don't know, people always act like Caribbean people like we don't have a standardized measuring system. We have a standardized. We know what is a tint. Right? We know what that is.
A little bit.
Yeah, just put a how much? Just a right? We know what we're talking about, even if nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah. And honestly, calling my mother when I was trying to learn how to cook when I got a little bit older. And calling my mother and trying to like deduce what that was.
Or try to write it down. How do you spell wonks? It's just how much cream of wonks? Okay, GOONKS. Like it's rough, but yeah, if you could learn to cook with your mother's measuring system, what's your best thing that you could make?
The best thing I make is it's split. I really like making gumbo.
Okay, that's surprising.
It was just one of those things like through experimentation, I'm always looking for like new recipes and stuff like that. And like there's something about the Louisiana and their culture that like I really wanted to gravitate to and like I feel a piece of.
Have you been to
No, it's on the list. It's on the list. There's a bunch of listen. I am a big old Toronto man. I haven't got nowhere but back home. You feel?
Solid culture. You don't get to go anywhere but home and home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right? I don't know if my viewers know, but at the end of June, beginning of July, there's a Black Girl Giggles comedy festival that's taking place in Louisiana. Same weekend as the Essence Festival. So if ever there was a time to go, that is the time to go. But tell us then about how you came across this gumbo.
Yeah, so it was like it was a combination of like I've been tasting I've been out to other people's houses, I've been tasting other people's food. And like especially I know other people who have traveled a lot, so when they come back and they're telling me and like they're unable to remake it because like they don't necessarily have that ability. But like they're like, oh man, like jambalaya is crazy. Like you have to have gumbo, you have to try all of this, you have to get sweet, you have to have some cornbread, you have to do a thing. And then I went to like Nashville a little while ago and like just sitting and like soaking up all of this food. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna get high blood pressure, but it's delicious. Right? And I'm just like, there's something about like the Black American experience when it comes to food that I'm like, there's things here that like are so rich that I want to take from.
So you just decided to just try a thing yourself.
Yeah, so I just decided to kind of try a thing, and like it took a while. The first gumbo was not hitting.
Okay, well, what was in this first gumbo? Just in case someone don't know what is gumbo.
I mean, all right. So gumbo is a really hearty stew for the most simplest way possible.
All right.
But the way you start it is you start with a roux, which is all flour and oil, and you are stirring in this flour and oil combination until it like becomes this really thick and like nutty base.
All right.
All right. And then after you do that, you throw in your trinity, which is your celery, your green peppers, and your carrots. What is it? Hold on. Yeah, celery.
That's the trinity: celery and peppers and
celery,
carrots.
green peppers, and the carrots.
All right.
All right. You toss it in. You cook that all in. You cook that all in the roux that you just made.
Okay.
All right.
So there's no liquid at this point.
Yeah.
It's
just the base.
All right.
And that's when afterwards. That's afterwards. After you're adding in all your chicken broth. You're adding in your broth. I started with chicken broth, and now I do like a bone-in broth, and like we upgrade over time. Because you start figuring out the process and whatnot. All right, but yeah, you pour in your chicken broth and then you start. You usually use chorizo sausages, right? Like a hard sausage. And what I like to do is I like to like toss my sausage, grill it up a little bit first, then chop it up.
Season it up.
Yeah, season it up, then toss it into it.
That's also a cooking term right now.
Yeah. Right, and then it's like because of that thickness, you're adding a bunch. Like you add a bunch of. I really like eating seafood. I'm really big on seafood, so it's like it's always going to be like a lot of like mussels and shrimp and like pieces of crab. Like I want to say it was like Easter, somebody gave me a link up for like some fresh crab.
Oh.
So
now mussels are in the shell, right?
Yeah,
but
put
them in the shell in the.
No, I'm cracking. I'll boil it. I'll boil them. I'll crack it up and then
you put it. Okay, so you don't cook it in the shells in the gumbo. Okay.
Right. And then it was we had like some fresh crab, just like I got fresh crab delivered to the house.
Nice.
I spent 3 hours cracking the crab and pulling everything out of it.
That is some serious commitment.
I was unaware how long it was gonna take, but like it was me, my partner was there. We're just going through it, cracking it up, right? And then just having a good old time.
So why was the first gumbo not hidden? Like what?
Right?
What? It sounds like it would have been hidden.
Roux is really hard to get right. It takes a lot of time you have to pay a lot of attention to it, and it's really easy to burn your roux.
Oh no, yeah, that's
right.
That's a problem.
And that's the thing, when you're first making it, like it sounds like it's gonna be quick, like you're putting the flour, you're tossing it, you're just doing that little soft stir. 15 minutes.
Woo.
Right? It's not like,
Ooh,
listen.
Just thinking about
it. I'm thinking about I was thinking about it. I'm like, yo, if you're a mom in Louisiana, I know your arm game is strong. Right? So it's like I think I was just like impatient with it. It took me time to realize like what that process was. And like, I would be stirring it. I go because like you can go run off and go grab a thing and then try to come back. No, it doesn't work that way.
No, you gotta stick with it. You gotta watch it.
You gotta stick with it. You gotta watch it. And it took me a little while before I could figure out that right combination of like the fat and the flour to like mix together and then get it to the way that I wanted it
and stuff.
Yeah. All
right.
And it just took practice.
So after the first one that wasn't hidden, you have the confidence to go back and try it again.
Yeah, because like. The biggest issue about messing up a good plate of food is how much food you have left that you just messed up. Right?
Can you repurpose it?
Right?
Can you redo it again?
I try my best. Right. But yeah, I'm very much I'm very tenacious. It's like if I want to get something done, I'm gonna get something done. It might take me a while.
But I can see the combination here, right? Like, from your mother and like that tenacity, and then we're just gonna figure it out. You got that from your dad. I'm like, that's good. That's good how that comes together.
Yeah. So yeah, I just kept doing it, especially because like I try to make it like in the fall, like right when it starts to like cool, get a little bit colder, right? And like gumbo like sits with you, like it's so warm. It like sits in your stomach and it just kind of like warms you throughout the day. It's
you've got a soup soul. I can hear it. You're talking about the chicken foot soup. You're talking about the gumbo.
Yes.
I don't know how you feel about like a goat head soup.
Yeah.
What? Do you make those things?
I do not make Madish water. I want to. I have not figured it out yet. I actually don't even know where to find a decent piece of goat head yet. Yeah. Right.
On a goat, you just gotta go.
Yeah,
that's the best way. Just on the goat.
Hey, listen. The next time I'm driving through the city and I see a goat, I'll make sure to stop and pick it up.
Right by the Eaton Center. I want 1 or 2. Right there, just snatch it.
Just pick it up, just less, and then call some people. But listen, I'm gonna make a curry goat tomorrow, and I'm gonna make Madish water on the side. And we're gonna be
yeah, but you're pushing boundaries because I know a lot of people always think, well, if you're like solidly in your Jamaican culture, you really just cook Jamaican things. But do you cook Jamaican things?
Yeah. Oh, my ackee and saltfish is crazy.
Your ackee and saltfish is crazy?
Listen, my ackee and saltfish is...
Okay, now that's a bold claim.
That it is, but it's not a lie. Right? Yeah.
Better, different? Like, is it like just that you solidly know how to make it, or do you have something that elevates yours to a level above other homemade ackee and saltfish?
I think it's more just like the way I figured out how to do it. It's like I try to keep it simple, but I think I've just like figured out the combination and like the actual measurements of everything like really well.
So it's consistent.
Yeah,
no matter what, it's consistent.
It's consistent.
It's good.
I know if I sit down like. I'm very iffy about buying ackee and saltfish any place else, because if I buy it and I eat it, it's not even as good as my food I could have ate at home. I'm like, it doesn't take that long for me to make ackee and saltfish and eat at home.
Right. You got the process down.
Right.
See, this is why our parents said there's food at home.
Yeah.
Not just because they were cheap, even if they were cheap, but you just never know if what you get in the road is going to be as good as what you could make at home if you can cook.
Yeah. Right. Right? And God forbid me for a long time I couldn't cook, and it took me a really long time to put the pieces together and figure out how one easy cooking is, right? Like I think we overlook that and we kind of overthink how cooking can be, but it's really just like a lot of it is expression. Right?
So saltfish, do you soak or do you boil?
Boil.
You do boil.
Yeah.
And strain the salt.
Yeah.
Because I've heard different ways, and I've had some people make a ackee and saltfish, or even just a basic saltfish where it's like it's too salty, and then other times it could taste like straw because everything is gone out of it. But you feel that you've got the boiling down to a hard science, right?
Yeah, because the thing is when you're boiling it out, first off, boiling it out, it's harder to overboil it. Right? If you leave it in a piece of water and let it soak, and you're just gone for God knows how long, you come back, it might just be finished. Right? If I wanted to boil out all of the salt from the saltfish, it's gonna be sitting there and boiling for 1 hour, 2 hours. Right?
But you boil it for considerably less time than that.
Exactly. Right? And it's like I kind of figured out. I'm like, even if I'm trying to make like I've tried to do it longer, right? Because I wanted to figure out. I'm like, oh, maybe I wanted to have how much salt can I add like retroactively?
Okay.
Right? Like while I'm doing the cooking process, because like I'm always like cooking with salt, and then at a certain point I just realized like I'm not. The saltfish is already as salty as it needs to be.
Yeah,
so you boil out the salt. Anything that you add that would have salt in it, you just cut that back. Right, and you use some alternatives for it instead, right?
Alternatives for salt.
Yeah, well, like alternatives for like that salty flavor, right? Because like things like garlic powder has like a saltiness to it. Like garlic salt has a saltiness to it. And like you can find other ways to do it. Like I find using like a pinch of like turmeric actually helps a lot.
All right.
Right? And not even a lot.
Brings up the flavor. Oh, no, you never use a lot of turmeric.
Exactly.
It can just overpower the
whole thing. Right? Because it's like it already has so much in it, especially if you're putting a whole Scotch bonnet in it, right? You can literally like a lot of the flavors that are in it, you can kind of like cook and run for themselves. Like all-purpose seasoning, I don't require no all-purpose seasoning for when I'm making a saltfish, because it's like you can literally do all the other things and then extract that. And
you can handle. You're a pepper handler. You're handling pepper.
Yes, I can handle some pepper. It's when I moved out of my house and like started living with other people, and I really like cooking for the house, right? It took me a while to be like, everybody can't eat the way I eat, right? I'm cooking food, I'm chopping up peppers, dog, and dashing it, and everybody's like, listen, that's good, but like,
you're killing me.
Yeah. You're catching a sweat.
Man, I remember when I first moved out on my own, that's when I knew I was a woman, when I had my own bottle of pepper sauce in my own fridge. I'm surprised at how many people overlook that. It's like you can have everything that you have, but if you don't have your own pepper sauce, you're not grown.
Do you make your pepper sauce?
Well, no, because I don't have the time. But I like other people's made pepper sauce more than I like what's in the store. I tasted some really good pepper sauce this weekend. I went to the Black Queens of Durham fest that they had out in Oshawa, wherever we were. I wish I could remember this woman's pepper sauce. If I remember, I'm gonna link her. I'm gonna tag her in the post. But this woman was interested. She had 3 kinds of pepper sauce for you to sample. One was yellow, one was red, and one was green. So she's like, the yellow one is mild, and the red one is medium, and the green one is hot. So I was like, okay, let me try them out, because I like pepper. I wouldn't say that I'm not like trying to go crazy, but I like a good pepper. Let me tell you, the yellow one was so good, but it was hot. Like it wasn't mild. So I said to her, this is not mild. I said, because it has really great flavor, but the heat is more than what I would expect for you to say that something is mild. Yeah. I said, but I'll try the medium just because it tasted so good. I tried the medium, and the flavor, again, the medium was chilly and the flavor was incredible, but it was just as hot as the first one. So I said the flavors are different, but they're equally, the heat measurement is equally the same. And then another woman came along while I was here arguing the difference between heat and flavor. Another woman came along, and the lady who was the seller said to her, the same mild, medium, and hot. So I interjected. I said, just so you know, she's telling you that it's mild. It is not mild. I'm telling you it's hot. Trust me. I said, it's good, but it's hot. The green one, amazing. Equally as hot.
Mhm.
So I was trying to make up my mind which
Mhm.
one I wanted. I got the green one.
Mhm.
And tell you, when I tag, I recommend any of them because they were that good. But if you're looking for something mild, when I find a lot of people say things are mild, they're not. Pepper seekers, they don't understand what is mild. Yeah.
I start figuring out mild. Like I figure out my pepper lining not by what I taste it, by how much I put in that thing.
Yes.
Right. That's how I distinguish it because I'm like, nah, I can't tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, because your tongue just becomes acclimatized to it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So all right. So now we've learned that your gumbo is on point. Ackee and saltfish is on a level. What are we doing for dessert?
See, I am not a baker. Dessert is lost on me. I have made a really good apple crumble once. Apple pie. I've done that.
You've made apple pie?
Yeah.
From scratch?
Yeah.
Peeled the apples?
Yeah.
Made the pastry?
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. Like, I'm not a baker. I'm not a baker. When people say I'm not a baker, that means that they're going to the grocery store and they're buying that this pie for $12.99.
Well,
they're not making pastry. People who are not bakers don't make pastry from scratch.
Understand. I made a pastry one time and it worked out, and I was like, all right, that's good. But you know what? This was a lot of work, and I don't like it.
When I tell people I make a pastry from scratch, I buy the frozen pastry, roll it out into the pan, and I made a pastry from scratch. Like I scratched myself while I was making the pastry. That's about as good as it could get. I'm not making nothing like that from scratch.
No, it's like when I'm trying a new recipe. There's a YouTube channel called Epicurious.
Epicurious, yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, and they do like their 3 levels of any kind of meal. So they have like a home cook make it, somebody's mom makes it, and then they have like a chef make it.
Okay.
Right. So they show you how to make it in 3 different levels. Right. So anytime I'm like thinking about making something, I'll watch that video and then I'll take bits and pieces. Right. So I'm like, so when I was for the apple pie, like I figured out how to make like a pastry that wasn't too difficult, right? I figured out how to like do those things. I figured like, okay, we're gonna take from this. We're gonna soak our apples in brown sugar with a little bit of sauce to like really put out the flavor in it, right?
See, I'm gonna suggest to Epicurious that they need a 4th stream. So instead of a home cook made it, before that they need if a 2nd grader made it, and then that's the one that I'm that's the one that I'm gonna do. So which dessert is your favorite? Whether you make it or not, what's your favorite thing?
Cheesecake.
Do you make cheesecake?
No, I haven't made cheesecake, but I've had more than one partner make me cheesecake. And you know what? If you made me cheesecake, I love you.
Okay.
That's what
all right, so that's not a deal breaker, but it's a bonus. It's a nice to have.
Yeah.
Partner that makes cheesecake.
Yeah, if you can make some cheesecake, trust me.
Okay, now I'm not to stereotype, but I've been to a lot of Jamaican households, and whenever it's cheesecake, it's always just the drenched in cherries cheesecake. Is that the level that we're talking, or are you on some Epicurious level of cheesecake?
I find like I like cheesecake. Let's like the chocolate swirl. Like I don't actually like need the whole top off on it, right?
Like New York style cheesecake.
Yeah, like a New York style cheesecake with just like a thick richness. Like I just want a small slice of it so I can deal with it, right? And then like the only thing that comes second to cheesecake is carrot cake. Right?
I love carrot cake.
Carrot cake is crazy.
Cream cheese icing.
Yes.
Nuts or no nuts? Pause. All right.
So it can go either way. Yeah. Like I think my last birthday, I asked for a carrot cake. I was like, no, like give me a carrot cake. Are you? How old are you? I was like, no, don't worry about it. I'm as old as I need to be to want carrot cake.
So, do you have any allergies?
No.
So you could just go wild.
Yeah.
Like anything you want in this world.
The world's my oyster. As long as I'm not eating a cat, I'll be fine.
Right. Noted. Yeah. So I remember I asked you before what kind of food you thought was underrated. And now that I remember, you really are a soup soul because you said soups and chili are underrated. So you find that people are not giving soups and chilies the recognition that they deserve. They're not getting the love.
I think people don't take soups and chili as seriously. This is very cultural because especially like when I go back to Jamaica and every corner has a man with a big piece of pots they're selling soup, right? And like when I first like experienced that, I've been like. And like it's hot in Jamaica.
Yes.
I'm like, why are man out here serving soup? And then you go outside and you have a little soup in your hand, right? You're just chilling, you know, you're little, you know, like
No, that's how all year round.
it's a whole year, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it changed my mentality on like what soup was for, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, like soup is for all the time, every time. And then like you don't see people people don't gravitate towards soup the way they do other food, and I think it's misguided. Right? Yeah.
Now, but what do you think about other types of soup? Because I know I'm a soup lover. I love most kinds of soup, but I know growing up I was kind of like, challenged a bit when you go to a Canadian person's house, for example, and then they're like, "Oh, would you like a bowl of soup?" And then they serve you something out of a can, like chicken noodle soup. I'm like, that to me that shouldn't even be called soup. That should be called water in a can, maybe. I mean,
listen, the chicken noodle soup that I'm serving. First off, chicken noodle soup is not difficult to make. You can literally like go to a store, pick up a rotisserie chicken, chop the rotisserie chicken up, right? Boil it out, and add all your fruits and vegetables in it. Clap, clap, clap. You're making a soup, right?
Okay. Do you put dumplings in your chicken noodle soup?
Oh, I put dumplings on my soup. I put dumplings on my soup.
I know when I was growing up, people thought that was crazy. Like dumplings and noodles. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta have dumplings.
I don't know if like I've internalized this on like some like fiscal responsibility thing where I'm like, oh, if you just put a dumpling in the soup, first off, you're thinking up the soup. Second off, you're adding like extra food or something to chew out when you're having the soup. And I'm like, it's just more food for the soup, right? It doesn't make no sense. So yeah, dumpling goes in all soup. In terms of like when you're dealing with certain types of people who are be out here cooking, because I wouldn't when you say open up a can and put it like I cringe at the idea of that because I would never if you're coming to my house I would never like serve that to you. I'll serve it to myself when I'm sick and I'm like, come let me just boom do a little thing. And even then I'm putting it in the pot first. I'm adding extra seasoning. I'm chopping a little onion up to something in that first. All right. Yeah, I mean maybe that's why it's underrated because some people aren't using the soup properly.
Although I think in this generation I have to rate Canadians nowadays because Canadians have had enough exposure now to know how to make some proper things. And I mean like the traditional culture Canadians. But when I was coming up, Canadians felt no way. Like they would just open the can and like dump it in the bowl, stick it in the microwave and just put it in front of you. And I'd be like, 10 years old and just turn right into my mother like, sorry, there's food at home. And then I'd be about my business because who wants to eat that?
It wasn't until I was 16 that I realized other people's mom couldn't cook. Growing up, everybody I knew, immigrant parents, all of them could cook up food, right? Yep. And it wasn't until I like changed school, went to a different area, and I went up and I ended up as So you want to come in and talk to us?
People, take notes.
Right?
Don't wait for the job to come to you. Go to it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I had never been there before.
Right.
It was literally like I walked by. I was like, comedy. You know what? I like comedy. Let me see what I can do with this. Right.
So my question is that did you get the job, and then when you sometimes you hear people on stage and you're just like, man, I could do better than this, because I know I've heard that story too.
Yeah,
like, people were like sweeping the floors and stuff like that. They were like, I could do that.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't even a matter of like I can do that. I think it was like I was a performer before. I was a musician. I rapped. I wrote a lot of music.
You played music,
right?
You played an instrument?
No, I played a DAW. I played a digital. I played on. You find me on an Ableton, bro? Oh, trust me, I can get some triplets going.
All right.
Nah, but it was more a matter of like I was kind of like in that space, talking to a bunch of comedians, and I was always just jovial, just we were shooting jokes back and forth, and like more than a handful of them were like, "Yo, you should try this, right? I think you'd enjoy it. You should give it a shot." So,
do you remember your first time on stage?
Yeah, my first time on stage. It was a Tuesday. It was a Tuesday, February 4th. It was my birthday. I remember this because I was working that day. It was a Tuesday, so the open mic was happening, and the guy who runs the open mic, it's also his birthday. So we shared the same birthday.
Okay.
Right? And I came up and I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna try it today. Right? I think I'm gonna give it a shot. And I've been writing jokes for a while because I was like, I think I was thinking about doing it. So I was writing jokes for a while, and I came up like, yo, I want to try today. He's like, all right, bet. I'll make sure you go on, right? Because they do a little system, right? So I don't see him for a few minutes. The show starts. Somebody runs over. Hey, you're up first. I'm like, why? Why? So me and the bartender, we start taking shots. Right? You're like, okay, you're gonna do this, right? And then I get on stage, right? Immediately forget every joke that I wrote, right? Okay. Immediately forget every joke that I wrote, and I started talking. I started goofing. I started just like being. Like I kind of like fell back into that stage of performing, right? And I just started doing that. And once the first joke hit, boom, I became comfortable. And then we just kept going. We kept going. And you know what? I had a very good set. Right? I got on stage. Everyone was like, hey, they kept buying me drinks. They're like, yo, I've seen people in comedy do much worse sets yesterday. Right? And I was like, okay, boom, boom, boom. So they gassed me up, and now I'm just shaking all of that gas and running with it.
Nice. Right? Okay, I got, let's say, maybe 2 more questions to ask you before we wrap this up. So you went from that to performing everywhere you could perform, and now you're producing a monthly show of your own? Yeah, so like the process wasn't immediate because that happened, and then pandemic happened. So like, nothing was happening at that point, right? So we came out of the pandemic. I was trying to figure out how to piece things together. I was working nights, so it makes it hard to like do comedy all the time. And then I figured out how to get a little day job going for me. And once I got my day job running, I was like, bet, afternoons are open, we doing comedy. Okay. Right? So tell us about your show. Right? So now, the show is called Fresh Lineups. It's at Color's Barbershop, 1612 Queen Street West. It's crazy. Really good energy, really good vibes. Always have a DJ Dave, always on the ones and the twos. He like the vibes is fire. We play music afterwards. Everybody's vibing. Bars open. Like, hold on, it's a comedy show in a barbershop? Yes, the comedy show is in the barbershop, and there's a bar, and there's a DJ. Okay, right? Everybody's coming to that. Everybody's got to come to that because that's fire. It's a concept. It's a great concept. Fresh lineups. Yes, fresh lineups. Right. The first show went off with a hit. It went amazing. The second show is going to happen on June 24th, right? And then we have it every month. The last Saturday of every month at Color's Barbershop. That's what we do. Can you get your hair cut during the show? You see, I'm working on that. I have to make sure that there's barbers in there. Because sometimes the barbers aren't paying attention. They're paying attention to the jokes. Oh, right. You might not want to end up with the Bobby Brown. Exactly, right? You don't want a man in your head and then start giggling, and now your hairline is looking messed up. Okay. Right? All right. And And then finally, you also starting a podcast.
Yes, I am starting a podcast. It's called Friends with Comedians with my co-host Rita on the Run on Instagram. That podcast is like really a work of love, a work of passion. Every episode we break down specials, like new and old comedy specials. So we talk about like how they're doing. We talk about like the actual like mechanisms of comedy, but also break down the topics that they're talking about. Right? It's a really nice like starting conversational points because like that's what comedy is for. Like comedy is to like communicate ideas and for us to have something to run off of.
So it's a studied analysis. It's a deep dive into comedy specials.
Yeah, but it's also comedy. So we out here we're joking about it's hard to stay serious all the time.
Serious about comedy.
But like if you want to learn like the minutia of comedy, right? I think you're gonna learn a lot. I think you learn a lot about it, and also going back and like finding specials that you might have missed, and also things that like topics that you might not have caught up on.
Okay.
Being able to break those down together is fun.
Yeah, I know my viewers did not think that minutia was a word that they were into on this podcast.
Listen, I'm a studious boy.
You have underscored that point. All right. So where can people find out more information? Like where Fresh Lineups is happening on June the 24th.
Yeah.
Where can they find out about that? And where can they follow you?
The best place to follow me on everything is Instagram. It's Iron Kalin, IRON, like the metal. Kalin is KALIN, right? You can do that. Friends with Comedians, just one word. You can find that on Instagram, right? And you can also find my comedy channel, which is Kalin Comedy. That's a K for Kalin and a K for comedy.
And not a third K that you're going to tattoo on your...
If the third K comes out, that's when mom's going to counsel me. That's when my mom's going to call me.
Comedy canceled with a K?
That might be a special.
Not tonight. Well, Kalin, I want to thank you. I really want to thank you for vibing up the space. We're here at ScarPod Studios. Sound guys are hype. Yeah. Right. So anybody else, you're doing your podcast, you're getting your audio book together, whatever you're getting done, let's get it done here at ScarPod Studios. So we're really glad that we could be here. And again, I want to remind you that we're going to have Kalin and Lady Day and that girl Rasha are going to be bringing the jokes to our Cocktails and Comedy, the Dark and Stormy show, taking place 5 days after Fresh Lineups on Thursday, the 29th of June, 8 p.m. Tickets are on Eventbrite at darkstormy.eventbrite.ca. Remember, your $30 tickets includes your choice of cocktail or a house appetizer. Come out, have jokes, have fun. It's an after-work vibe. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be hosting. Kalin's going to be there. It's going to be lit.
Right.
So thanks again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And good night, everybody. We'll see you again for Let 'Em Eat Laughs next week.